Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. It is a weekly chat about socially conscious topics impacting the culture. I'd like to extend my gratitude in you listening to this podcast. It means everything to me, and I hope it is clear that this subject matter is so important to me. I care about our people, our future, and making a positive change in this nation.
This episode is powered by Poddex.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. It is a weekly chat about socially conscious topics impacting the culture. Today, we have a special guest, Larry Penton, CEO of Penton Pending Consulting Solutions, LLC, who is originally from my hometown, St. Louis, and we're glad to have him. Welcome to the show, Larry.
Thank you so much. Go Cardinals.
Yeah, actually Tacoma win, so that was actually great. Right. I had my Cardinals gear on and everything, so yeah, that worked out. We're glad to have Larry on the show today. You guys know here at Woke by Accident, we enjoy working with other content creators and entrepreneurs. I did want Larry to share a bit about his background, and then we will get into the topics.
All right, well, I'm Larry Penton. Most people call me LP. I am originally from St. Louis, born and raised, lived, worked, had my family and everything in St. Louis. So born in 71, grew up on the north side, grew up on the west side, lived on the south side, then went back to the north side. I lived on Shreve and Lee for almost 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And so the Walnut Park area, and then I moved out to St. Charles City, and I lived in St. Charles County afterwards, before we moved here to Charlotte in 2020. So, but let's see, I am 51 now. It was myself, my mom. I grew up in a single parent household. I am the second of five of my dad's children. He had 5 children. All of us have the same dad, not the same mom. That was a little bit of a challenge growing up without him, but peace and blessings be upon his soul because he's no longer with us. He died in 2000. I had to get past that. As a kid, I was really upset about not having him in my world. And, I grew up in an environment with a lot of love, in spite of some of the challenges that I had as a kid. And, some of those involved bullying. I had to get over that and become the person that you see today. Yeah. So I didn't let it take me under anything like that. I got into computers at a young age. I was a computer prodigy, and I worked for a number of Fortune 500 companies in the St. Louis area up until the age of 37. And then I got into EMS first, and then fire. And before that, I raised 6 kids, 5 boys, 1 girl. We had a set of twins. Nice. With the second birth. The girl's the youngest. She was born on Christmas, so she'll be 15 this year. And my ex-wife and I, we were married twice, got divorced twice, and then I remarried in 2019. And my wife and I, we are in Charlotte now. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice big family. That's great.
Then I retired in 2020 after being on the front line fighting COVID. I worked for a private EMS service in St. Louis, as well as a paid department in St. Louis County. And we got here in 2020. A year later, we started this company, this consulting firm, which is what we're going to dive into today.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So, I met Larry here on the Clubhouse app, and he talked about his expertise in emergency operation plans and safety, and that really resonated with me. And in light of many of the tragedies that we've heard about on the news with the mass shootings and crowd chaos situations, I thought it would be a valuable conversation to share with you guys. So we wanted to get into a few topics to share and to keep us safe in those kind of situations. Now, Larry's company Penton Pending Consulting offers the following services. He mentioned his background, so we know his expertise, but strategy and organization, website creation, emergency operation plan, stop the bleed, certified instruction, training, active violent incident, active shooter, hostile events, consultation, podcasts, which is, we love podcasts, and public and gun safety information, virtual, in-person training options. There's more, but I just grabbed the few that I thought were really interesting. The first responder, guest medical expertise, mental health strategies. So this is your area of expertise. And then also Larry has been featured recently on the Serious Minds podcast of Professor Griff discussing the Travis Scott strategy. So I wanted to get his thoughts on how we can keep ourselves safe. The most recent tragedy that occurred just here on the 3rd of April was this situation in Sacramento where 6 people were killed and there were 12 injuries, where there was a shooting at a club. And then, so I guess the Sacramento Police Department, they're still conducting their investigation, but it's believed to be a gang-related shooting, but just, a mass crowd and a shooting erupts. And, you can imagine the panic. And, we had a lot of deaths result of that. So what are some things that people can do if they're in a public place and such an event takes place to keep themselves safe?
My company partners with 2 individuals. One individual, his name is Dexter Doc Pagans. He's a 25-year Army and Marine Corps veteran. He was a combat medic in the Army, and he's also a highly decorated, highly trained person who works for the government still after he retired from the military. He still works for them as a consultant and a trainer, and he's an emergency manager. He actually wrote a book called Are You Prepared? Or Your Ordinance, if you actually put it on camera. And talk about disaster preparedness. We teach the Stop the Bleed trainings. We go across the country teaching that.
Okay.
We did a training at LinkedIn headquarters for their executive protection team. These are all the security folks that do security for the CEOs and the VPs. So we did that last year. I would say this, when we're talking about active violent incidents, and I want the audience to understand why I'm not using the word active shooter hostile events. That's the term that you hear in the media. The government is getting ready to switch to using active violent incidents because that covers everything. That covers your firearm incidents, that covers any weapons that are used in a violent incident or explosives. Okay. And we know, like on Clubhouse, when you start saying certain things, you get shadow banned, you get put in the matrix, you start getting all choppy or whatever, especially when you're talking about guns and different things like that, for whatever reason. So when I talk about active violent incidents, I'm talking about anything that if somebody went in the crowd and started stabbing people with a pen, that's an active violent incident because that pen is used as a weapon.
Right.
So if you are in a house of worship, because something like that happened at a house of worship.
Okay.
If you are at a business, a workplace, if you're at a school, because we know about these school shootings and different things like that. If you are in the community, at a concert, anywhere an active violent incident can happen. So what we tell people is we train you to be a by-doer instead of a bystander. What I mean by that is, and that came from Doc, he says that, and I say, it's not a matter of if, but when and where an active violent incident is going to occur, and what are you going to do about it? So part of what the StopTheBleed.org does is it trains people on how to deal with these incidents. If somebody has a lethal bleed, meaning they have a spurting blood coming out or it's pooling out big time, that bleed has to stop because the number one cause of death in trauma is uncontrolled bleeding. So in that situation in Sacramento with those, 6 people that were killed, 12 were injured, they needed a lot of tourniquets, they needed a lot of gauze, they needed a lot of things that we contain, that you can buy in what's called an IFAC, which stands for Individual First Aid Kit.
Okay.
That is a specialized first aid kit. It's not like your bargain basement one with bandages and Tylenol and ointment and stuff like that. These have tourniquets, they have chest seals, they have hemostatic gauze, which is clot forming substances that you can put inside wounds to stop the bleeding, and some other things. And so when I think about that situation in Sacramento, here's what I would say to the audience. If you were there and you started seeing people getting hurt, whether it was with gunfire or what have you, the concept that we teach is called run, hide, fight. You want to run away from the situation, or the technical term that we use is get off the X. Wherever that firearm is pointed, you don't want to be where that bullet is going to be terminated.
Okay.
So you want to run away from the danger. You want to get off that X. Sometimes people will go with the crowd. That may not be the best decision because you might be running into where that shooter is.
Right.
The next thing, if you can't run, you want to hide. And there's two things that you want to think about when it comes to hiding: cover and or concealment. Cover shields, concealment hide. Think about standing behind a sheet. You're concealed, but a bullet can still go through that sheet and get you and hurt you. Cover is getting behind something that's solid, a desk, a wall. If you were out in the open like they were, you want to get behind like a car. You don't want to get behind the trunk end of the car or where the doors are. You want to get behind the engine block because that engine block can deflect those bullets. It's better.
Okay.
The bullets will go through the doors and they'll go through the trunk area because those are empty.
Right.
So you want to, remember, cover, shields, concealment, hides. If you can't do any of those things, then you have to get in a position to fight. And I mean fight for your life. And whatever you got at your disposal, you can use that. I don't care if it's a water bottle as a weapon, an ink pen, a broom, a chair, whatever, a glass, whatever you got to use to fight for your life, that's what you use. If you're in a confined space, you want to barricade that space as much as you can. So these are things that we talk about along with talking about the importance of learning first aid, learning CPR, learning how to stop the bleed, because you may be that immediate responder before EMS shows up. And remember, EMS is not going to come on the scene until that scene is secured, until law enforcement, and they'll have probably a SWAT medic, which is a tactically trained paramedic with them. That tactical medic is there for the cops in that SWAT unit.
Okay.
Until that scene is cleared, all they're doing is trying to get to that shooter or shooters and secure that scene. Once that's taken care of, then they'll bring in EMS.
So it may be a long time potentially.
Maybe a long time. Yeah. And sometimes that happens, and sometimes people die because they weren't able to get aid or because people weren't able to stop the bleeding. And that's why we do what we do to train people. Hey, you may be in that situation. What do you do?
Yeah, that's really scary. And then like another scenario that happens a lot are these crowd chaos situations, like the Travis Scott concert, the Astroworld event. Was it November 5th in Houston, Texas, where 10 people died in that event, the youngest being 9 years old. And some 300 people were injured, and there was just a surging of the stage, and so people were just so tightly compacted where they couldn't breathe or move their arms. Just a really scary situation to imagine being in. If it's that tight of space, I mean, I guess what is, your advice being in a concert type of environment?
That's a great question, because my stepdaughter, who just turned 17 here in North Carolina in Raleigh, she just went to this event that It was a big concert. It was like J. Cole and Lil Wayne
Oh,
and
the
Lil Baby.
Dreamville. Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, she went there, and I was like, here's what I want you to do. Because I told her about the Travis Scott, and we talked about that before too. I said, look, is it going to be outdoor or indoor? She was like, outdoor. I was like, okay.
Okay.
Hopefully what happened in Houston doesn't happen in Rock. Here's what you need to do. My advice is do not go in the middle or the front of the stage, because you can get that tsunami, that human tsunami wave of people pushing and compacting. And if they don't have any rows, and what happened in the Houston event, that was an open open crowd area. There was no rows and sections set up to divide people. So if it was set up like that, that incident wouldn't have happened unless they would have knocked over the partitions. There were no partitions set up for that. So if it's going to be an open environment similar to what was set up in Houston, then don't be in the middle and don't be up front. Be more towards the back or maybe on the sides, because if you see crap happening, I'm not going to curse on it. If you see crap happening, you need to be able to get, we call it ingress and egress, your entrance and exit. You need to be able to get out quick as you can. So the other thing we talked about is being aware of what's going on with you. Keep a closed container, because people slip Mickeys in people's drinks, especially young girls. And
that's true.
Young men too, you know, be aware of all of the things that go on just like normal, you know, pickpocketers, be aware of any fights or potential beefs or whatever that's going on. So those are things that we talked about. And she said it was a great event. There was no incidents that I saw or heard that were reported even on the news or what have you. So they did a great job, much better than what happened in Houston.
Right. And then with that particular event, do you feel like the responsibility was on the venue or the artist? I mean, because it sounds like they weren't prepared for such a event when, you know, everybody started talking about what went wrong.
I would say for me, so when you have a major event like that, there is things that are set in place. And if you go to FEMA's website, any large event, whether it's a sporting event, a concert, what have you, there are templates that you can download as the event planner, the promoter, whoever, even the public safety staff, whether it's the fire department, the police department, and all those different entities, those first responders. They can download those templates for a specific event and tailor it to that event. Logistics, security, EMS, fire, police, you know, all kind of things. And when you formulate, and this is what we call an emergency operations plan. You prepare for the worst, you hope for the best. Plain and simple. I don't care how big the event is, whether it's one person or a million people. You always plan for the worst, and you hope for the best. In that situation, I would say that it was just poor planning in terms of having a venue like that without those partitions set up to where you can get to people. Because if you got a crowd like that and people are getting crushed, it's called traumatic asphyxiation. I was at a concert years ago in St. Louis. Remember the Check? Well, I don't know how old you are. I'm 51. So it used to be the Checker Dome.
I heard about it.
It was right next door to Forest Park Community College.
Okay.
Forest Park. So there was a concert. It was LL Cool J, Run DMC, and Houdini.
Oh, wow.
And the doors open, the gates were supposed to open at 8 p.m. Well, 8 p.m. comes, 8:05 comes, 8:10 comes, and they don't open the door. So this mad human tsunami started doing the same thing. They started pushing. Broke through the gate. Everybody kind of collapsed like dominoes, and there were a bunch of people. There were like hundreds of people that were trapped. I was trapped, and my friend was trapped under this wave of people. And so we finally got out. But once you got into the Checker Dome, you had floor. You could stand on the floor, or you can be in the seats. And so we were on the floor. Same thing happened. People started crushing. It was so compacted that I could literally lift my legs up in the air. I was basically suspended in the air, surrounded by people or what have you. So with that being said, if you don't have those partitions set up to where you can get people in and out without that compartmentalization of folks, then that's why they start crowd surfing people out. But I mean, at that point, either the damage is done or it might be too late. So those are things that we talk about when we're talking about planning for the worst, hoping for the best. Everybody could take responsibility. The artists, I mean, they don't really have that responsibility. And you saw him on stage tell him, hey, can you back up, raise your hand if you need help and different things like that.
Right.
I think he did the best he could, but if you're part of that promotion team or whatever, that's why he's going to get sued.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, if you're part of the promotion team, then you're going to bear some responsibility to that. But I just think that if they would have set it up better with partitions, that would have probably minimized and maybe eliminated what could happen. And the other thing I would say, you go to the next question, is they didn't have enough trained responders. Because there was a nurse that was on, she had done an interview and she said she ended up passing out a couple of times. They crowd surfed her out, and when she finally came to, security was doing CPR. They were doing it incorrect. She had to show them how. Some people she had to just say, no, let me just do it or whatever. And so you got to have security. Everybody that works there, that security, I would say even the food staff or whatever, should be at least CPR trained, because all hands can help.
Yeah, definitely. And it's so weird, like PrePrint, well, I guess even now, like the objective would be like to get as close as you could, you know, even with the standing room, because you want to be as close to the artist as possible to get your picture and, you know.
Not without those partitions set up. I did when I was in St. Louis, you know, every year on Halloween, the city museum, they have a Halloween party throughout the whole museum. And so, man, they had a party on the 4th floor, or a concert on the 4th floor, and it was like this big mosh pit. I'm telling you, everybody was just crowded in, and the music was just blasting, and people were getting high because they were bringing drugs in. I had to Narcan a bunch of folks, you know, because they had OD'd. I mean, overall it was cool, but we did have a number. I think we probably had 10 emergencies total.
Wow.
Nobody died.
Yeah, you're right. But that's scary. Yikes. So, I mean, is it a good idea to leave or plan to leave early for like a concert? I mean, most people want to stay to the very end, you know, if the artist comes back for an encore, but should you plan to roll out before it's over? I mean, I know like when Beyonce came many years ago in St. Louis, you know, my husband was like, look, we finna go. And it wasn't over yet, you know, nothing broke out, but he was just saying he was just tired and ready to go. But, you know, he was just like thinking like it's going to be a madhouse trying to get to the car. Like, you know, should you plan to leave early or?
That's nothing. You can never leave too early.
Okay.
Now, let me ask you, was this the concert in Farmington?
No, this was like, oh God, this is so long ago. This is like before Coachella. This is in St. Louis.
Because I remember when she went to Farmington, I was like, Farmington, really? That's a rural area, you know, but hey, people showed up and it was cool. Like they had no incident. But anyway, you can never leave too early. I mean, it's your money, like whatever you pay for the ticket or whatever. You know, like my wife, she doesn't like baseball because she says it's too long. So she's out when the 7th inning stretch starts. She's ready to go.
Yeah, most people always leave the baseball games a little early.
The game ain't over. You know? But yeah, she's like, okay, I'm ready to go. You know, so, but yeah, you can never leave too early. And I would say, like, if you want to stay longer, anywhere you are, keep your head on the swivel. It's always about situational awareness. I don't care if it's a concert, if you're out, you know, like when they had the home opener the other day, and everybody, you know, gathers around Keener Plaza and all that stuff or whatever, or they're in Ballpark Village next to Busch Stadium. You just want to be aware of wherever you are. Even if you're at one of the clubs or something like that, drinking beer or whatever alcoholic beverage, or you're at one of the restaurants downtown St. Louis, you just want to keep your head on the swivel always, because it's not a matter if, but when and where an active violent incident can occur. And what are you going to do if you get caught up in it?
And those steps, those really important steps, are to run,
can't run, hide,
and
cover
fight.
and concealment.
Right, and then
if you can't hide, fight.
Fight for your life.
For your life with whatever you have. I don't care how big or small the object is. You take it, you put it in your hand or hands, and you fight like you are a trapped animal in the corner.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you hope that it never has to happen, but
Absolutely.
You never know. And I think it's important to talk about these things, especially as we have seen so many school shootings and events in the malls and things like that. So I appreciate you sharing those details.
I want to bring up one thing before we end. This is very important, and it's very near and dear to my heart. I'm even though I retired, my paramedic license is still active. Right? My license is in the state of Missouri. Since we're talking about active violent incidents, and since we're talking about mass shootings in particular, I want to talk to your audience and give everybody a bit of an education when it comes to public and gun safety. This is something that I take serious as cancer. This is literally life and death. Your audience can't see it, but I'm going to show you. This is a training gun that I have in my hand. It's all plastic. It's not a 3D model gun. There's no ammo in it, no moving parts or anything like that. When it comes to firearms specifically, but we can use all weapons, but I want to talk about firearms specifically because I know, especially coming from St. Louis, we know we keep getting the title of the murder capital of the U.S., even though per capita, we don't have the number of residents in the city like New York, L.A., and Chicago.
Yeah.
So when it comes to firearms, there are 4 universal safety rules that everybody needs to know, whether you're a gun owner or not. But especially if you think that you want to start either purchasing or utilizing firearms, whether it's handguns, rifles, or what have you. The 4 universal rules, safety rules when it comes to firearms, and I learned this from Professor Griff because not only is he a hip hop icon from Public Enemy, he also is a certified firearms instructor with the National Rifle Association and the U.S. Concealed Carry Association.
Oh, wow.
He travels across the country teaching, especially black and brown men and women, firearm safety training, education, and legal protection.
Okay.
He has an acronym that he came up with, and the acronym is TANK, like an army tank, TANK. Rule number 1, T. Treat all firearms as if they're loaded and perform a clearance check to make sure that there's no round in the chamber before you handle it, before you hand it off to somebody. That's T. So that's rule 1. A. Always know what your target is and what's beyond it, meaning what the backstop is. When a bullet comes out of this chamber, it's got to stop somewhere, and something's going to stop it. In St. Louis, on New Year's Eve, what happens? Everybody's shooting their guns off in the air. Those bullets go up with the same velocity as they come down with.
Yes.
They don't slow down or whatever. So that's one thing. But I'll give you a good example. There was a news story in LA where a young lady was killed in a shopping mall in a dressing room. I don't know if you heard about this story.
No.
There was an assailant that came in the mall with a knife he was wielding. LAPD was called. They showed up. They confronted the assailant, fired 3 rounds at the guy. One of the rounds missed the guy, went through a wall. On the other side of that wall was a dressing room. And in that dressing room was a young lady who got hit by that round and was killed because that officer was not aware of that backstop. So you always got to know what your target is. If it's an assailant, what's behind that assailant? Is it a wall? Is it just air? Is it people? What's behind that? Because a bullet can go through a wall, but it may not penetrate through the other side, but it may
Right.
penetrate the other side. So that's A. N, and this is probably the most important. Never point your weapon at anything that you're not willing to destroy.
Okay.
Knife, gun, whatever it is. Never point your weapon at anything you're not willing to destroy. And K, keep your finger off the trigger and outside the trigger guard until you have acquired your target and are ready to shoot. If you don't know those 4 universal safety rules, the only thing you should be touching in terms of a firearm is one of these plastic trainers.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to make this a visual episode just to get the fact. I appreciate you sharing that. Definitely, there's been so many, gun violent incidents. I'm thinking about. You probably heard about the 13 and 12-year-old kids in the downtown lofts. That was really tragic. And I heard that was even captured online, like they went live with it or something like that. And this is like, were they just playing around? I guess they said it was accidental, but I mean, we definitely need more gun safety education in the community.
I get news reports every single day from across the country, and I got every news agency, media, and print from St. Louis that I'm always keeping my ear to the ground. I still got family there. That's my hometown and all this stuff. So I'm always being, the voice of the people, news, real STL news. Like I get news alerts and stories all the time, Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. So I saw those stories. There was a toddler, and I got it up on my screen right now. Tyler fatally, this is in Philadelphia. This happened a couple of days ago on the 5th. Tyler fatally shoots 4-year-old sister at a Pennsylvania gas station. So the Tyler was sitting in the car with the 4-year-old sister by themselves while the adults were inside the gas station. There was a loaded firearm chambered round in the chamber. The Tyler picked up the gun and discharged the weapon, and it hit the 4-year-old sister and killed the 4-year-old sister. Here's my problem. Anywhere in the United States, a person can go to any police department or local sheriff's office and get a gun lock for free. Anywhere. St. Louis City PD, St. Louis County PD, St. Charles County PD, County Brown as we call St. Louis County or whatever. You can go to any police department, any sheriff's office, and they will give you a gun lock, almost like going to a fire department, your local fire department, and then getting a smoke detector. They would rather give you that than get a 911 call and we have to show up for a dead kid. Nobody wants that because we're human too. When I would get calls about gunshot wounds or whatever, and I see somebody dead, I'm a human being. I got to go home. Hey, how was your day, dear? Oh, yeah, I had to do all this stuff with work and had to formulate these charts and all this stuff. And then my wife asked me, well, how was your day? And I'm sitting there like, I had to do CPR on this baby who got a gun and shot themselves or whatever.
Yeah.
So gun locks, whether it's a $10 gun, anywhere that sells firearms, pawn shop, Walmart, any gun place, big sporting goods, they sell gun locks, whether it's a lock, whether it's I got a lock box that is electronic. They got biometrics in them, all that stuff or whatever. There's no excuse for any of these accidental discharges.
Okay. But the police stations will give them to you for free.
Pretty much for free. I mean, and you can buy a cheap gun lock that is effective for like $10.
Right. And
that's just a basic one, but it works.
Yeah. And we need to put our guns somewhere safe where children cannot get into them.
Yeah.
Because
that broke my heart.
It keeps happening from the little babies all the way up, or they were playing around. They thought they weren't going to pull the trigger. I don't know.
Firearms have to be stowed away properly. My gun has that electronic safe. The ammo is not inside of it. I have the slide in the lock position. In the magazines, I have 2 magazines. and they're sitting side by side inside the gun safe.
Okay.
You know, it's too easy to store and stage your firearm. It's too easy to secure your firearm. It takes 10 seconds.
Right. Yeah.
It takes 10 seconds.
So if something were to happen, because that's the fear or the concern where people want it just out, you know, in case an intruder does come in and they need to retrieve it, and that's why they leave it out where kids end up getting into it.
So here's the thing about that. If you're going to stage your weapon, you need to stage it in an area where the kids are not coming in, and you need to, like in my house, my gun is sitting in my gun safe and it's sitting right on the nightstand. If I heard an intruder, I put in my 4-digit code, open it up, click, slide, load, lock and load. That takes less than 10 seconds.
Okay.
That's a 10-second thing. You know, so that's why I'm saying, and when it comes to firearms, you cannot practice enough. I got this off of eBay. It's $13. It's a training gun. It's all plastic. This is this is a Glock model, but they have different models. Like I said, no moving parts. It's all plastic, and you can train with this. And there are different, like Professor Griff, he has online classes that he offers. I just did one of his classes. It was a 6-week online class. We met every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And after the 6 classes, we're going to do in-person classes. So he's going to go around to different cities. He's coming to St. Louis May 20th.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But you can take these classes online. Every gun range in your neighborhood, in your city or state, offers classes like these.
Right.
You know, you're not spending $1,000. You're not spending $500 or whatever. The price of your life. You have to take that into the account. Mm-hmm. And again, there are all women gun clubs. I'm talking about there are all black women gun clubs too.
Okay.
Yeah, if you Google black women gun clubs, I can tell you too right now, Women with Weapons and Lady Ammo.
Okay.
LADIAMMO. If you Google her or go to Instagram and type in Lady Ammo, she has a great gun club that she does. She does concealed carry training and stuff. You know, learning about firearms is so important. Don't be scared of a firearm, because firearms come in all shapes, sizes, and different things like that. It's not the firearm that you should fear. I'll end with this. Martin Luther King has a great quote, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I'm going to add one word to it. He says, "There is nothing more dangerous than sincere, intentional ignorance and conscientious stupidity." This is not what you should fear. You know what you should fear? And I'm holding the gun up, the training gun up to the video audience. This is what you should fear: the sincere, intentional ignorance. Because what's more powerful, a brain or a firearm? It's the brain, because the brain had to come up and create this.
Right. Okay. Well said. And I thank you, Larry, for sharing about the safety procedures that individuals should take. And we will have your links posted. Anything else to share?
If anybody wants to get in touch with me for training or anything about the company that we do, or for me to be a host, a guest on your show, podcast, or what have you, my digital business card, if you Google me, type in lp10k.com. lp10k.com is going to give you all of my contact information, all of my social media links, my website, my email address, my office number. Definitely tap in with me. I will talk to anybody, anytime, about any of these subjects, good, bad, and ugly. We have a podcast that we're starting. It's one of 3 that's starting April 18th. We're discussing traumas.
Okay.
Podcast is called Trigger Warning Talk Podcast. It's going to be discussing 4 things under mental health: domestic violence, sexually based offenses, human and sex trafficking, and missing persons. The missing persons component is going to be focused. 99% of those topics or those people that we're going to be focused on are going to be Black and brown men, women, and children, because there's not enough media coverage about that. Everything and everybody else is going to be covered under those 4 topics. And it's going to be from my perspective. So EMS, we have a nurse who does the forensic. She's a forensic nurse. So she does and again, trigger warning. She does the rape kits for people that come into the ER.
Okay.
And then we have a couple of rape advocates that are going to talk how they advocate for people that have been sexually assaulted from the initial assault to whatever the end point is, going through them with the court process, the medical procedures, all that stuff or whatever. And the reason that I'm doing this podcast is there's not enough men that are talking about these issues, these particular subjects. And there's no first responder that I found anywhere, nationally or internationally, that are dealing with these topics that I just named.
Yeah, definitely need that voice in the podcast space. So I appreciate you getting involved with that. And we'd love to have you back once you guys have launched to share. And yeah, so I definitely try to cover cases of missing Black and brown people, because we don't hear about that in the mainstream media as much. Like there's a case in St. Louis right now, young lady Deja Allen, and I don't think I've seen any mainstream news coverage at all. You know what I mean on that.
I'm going to tell you something.
Yeah.
Here's a St. Louis story.
It is.
No, I'm getting ready to tell you about a St. Louis story.
Oh, okay.
Remember Regina Sykes?
Okay, yeah, I believe so.
My wife is, she works virtually for a Fortune 100 company. However, she's a true crime detective, and she is really interested in missing persons. So she's going to deal with the missing person aspect of
great.
what we're doing. When Regina Sykes' mom was going on the media, asking for help, trying to find her daughter, my wife reached out to her. Now, we weren't married at the time, but my wife reached out to her because my wife, again, this is something that she's passionate about. This is not what she does full time. And so her mom was like, sure, I just want to find my daughter, good, bad, and ugly. So my wife, she has a network of people nationwide that she taps into. She found this company in Texas who does rescue and search and recovery. They got cadaver dogs and all those things. They actually flew from Texas, or I think they flew. They traveled from Texas to Missouri and went and looked for Regina Sykes. They found her. She was deceased though, but they found her when nobody else, no other law enforcement, no other volunteers, and nobody else could find her. This company found her.
Yeah, because her mom was Monica something. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that because they did cover that on, like, I think the TV One series that kind of does. So she did. Yeah, that was really tragic.
And gave her mom closure. And
for sure.
And and my wife, she's like, I don't want all no notoriety. Like, don't pay. Like, there was no money exchanged about that. Like everybody did this stuff for free.
That's
and my
awesome.
wife, like, I just, this is this. I'm passionate about it or whatever. So, but nobody really knows about that. And I was like, we got to talk about these things because we're gonna start doing this stuff or whatever. So she's like, okay. So that's why I'm bringing it up now, because before she was like.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, bless her heart. I love that. I love that. Yeah, we need that closure, and our stories need to be told and covered. So I appreciate you for just, yeah, that's awesome.
Anytime, I would love to do joint shows with you about any or anything. Just reach out to me, and likewise.
Okay, I will do that. Okay, well, we love, we appreciate Larry for stopping through, Walk by Accident, and we will have his information posted to share. And kudos to the podcast launching. That's exciting.
Yes,
and,
it is.
Yeah, and you're welcome. Well, welcome here anytime.
Yeah, it'll be on StreamYard, and it'll be on Anchor also. So.
Okay. Great. So, and you said YouTube?
Yeah, they'll be on my YouTube channel. So these will be pre-recorded for the most part. So it'll be streamed audio, video, and then we'll be doing it via Anchor and maybe Clubhouse too.
Okay. So. Great. Awesome. All right. Well, we'll definitely share. And we appreciate you so much. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you all, and be safe. Remember, not a matter of if, but when and where an active violent incident may happen. Please get trained. Call your local fire departments. Call your local American Red Cross, Heart Association, first aid, CPR, firearms training, all that stuff is very important. And with that, LP out.
Right on. Thanks, guys. At this time, we're going to go ahead and conclude the episode. We greatly appreciate you listening. We invite you to follow us on social media. On Instagram, it is Woke by Accident Podcast. On Twitter, it is Woke by. On Facebook, it is Woke by Accident Podcast. We also have the new website up, www.wokebyaccident.net. Please check us out and also follow us on all of your favorite streaming platforms, and please leave a review and share feedback. You can also reach out by Gmail, wokebyaccident@gmail.com. And every time you listen, we appreciate it so much. Thank you for listening and take care.